This is the Balanced Advisor Podcast with Dr. Travis Perry, helping financial advisors like you achieve balance in their lives.
Welcome to another episode of the Balanced Advisor Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Travis Perry. Today, we are privileged to have Jeremy Keil. He is a CFP, CFA, and retirement-focused financial planner with Keil Financial Partners and host of the Retirement Revealed blog and podcast. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me on, Travis.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this industry.
Yeah, so I was in college about 20 years ago. I was part of the Army ROTC, and I assumed I would go on and fulfill my commitment with the Army. And then I hurt my back, and they would not allow me to do that. So all of a sudden at 21, I had to figure out exactly what I needed to do. And basically, it came down to my aunt worked at a company called Thrivent Financial. And she said, hey, you sell suits at Jose Bank and you are good at math. You should become a financial advisor. And she was perfectly right on. I loved it from day one and haven't stopped.
I love that. That's awesome. So you went from Army ROTC to financial advisor via selling suits. That's super
That's
cool.
exactly it. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why some people say like, I could never do your job because you got to wear a suit. Well, number one, you don't have to wear a suit, but like I enjoy it. I used to sell suits. And so here I am wearing a suit coat. The whole COVID thing kind of got me out of the tie habit. I love ties and put them on and you can see that's not happening right now. So
yeah, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, I'm in a t-shirt. You've got a coat and no tie, but honestly, that's kind of been the trend though. Like it's been a trend to lose the tie more. And right. I like ties. I personally like wearing them. I think they look cool. But I haven't worn a tie in years. Just to church, Obama. Just to church.
Yep. There you go. Yeah. JFK got rid of the hats back in the day and Obama got rid of the ties like 15 years ago.
There you go. There you go. So Jeremy, you're a dad, you're a business owner. And by the way, you were telling me in the pre-show, your Retirement Revealed podcast is actually one of the top podcasts out there. So you've got a lot of demand on your time. You've got 2 girls at home. What is your definition of balance?
Yeah, I just like adding value to anyone I'm interacting with. And I love what I do and I try not to do things I don't love. And so for me, and I know there's a lot of people that have a thought that maybe you should have like 200 free days a year. And for them, that's awesome. That's great. But for me, I love doing financial planning. I love being a financial advisor. And so oddly enough, I keep track of my time. I give myself my own timesheet. Like if you want, I can tell a funny story about how that came about. But one reason why I do it is I want to make sure I'm actually giving enough time to my family and giving enough time to my business and to my clients. So I keep a timesheet. I'm trying to keep track of, do I take enough vacation days and am I working too much or not enough?
No, we want to hear the funny story. You left me hanging. This is partially what I teach to our financial advisors in the Achieving Balance book and our Make Time Method course. Keep track of your time. In fact, I'm so adamant about this, about, not just creating an ideal calendar for business, but for outside of work. Like, where are you spending your time? Does that really add up? Because if you say you value something and you don't actually spend the time doing it, you're creating cognitive dissonance, which creates distress. And we know what happens if that builds up over time. There's lots of studies that show what's going on in our lives. It really doesn't allow us to be congruent, right, with who we are. Yeah. So I love it. And I want to hear this story because right now we are actually in developing an app that will help advisors track their time with their clients and where they're spending it outside and their goals. So this is really intriguing to me. So, if you guys don't really care about this, sorry why we geek out just a second.
Yeah. So I'm just using hours tracker and it's just work or not work, and I'm just keeping track. So my goal is 6 weeks off per year. So that's 10 holidays. And sorry, that's my old goal. My goal this year is 7 weeks off. So 35 days of not working at all. Also, not working on the weekends, working less than one night per week. I tracked that because I was working 2 nights a week, maybe a little bit more before I started tracking it. And now I've dial it down. My goal is to work less than one night per week on average. And I want to work basically exactly the 40-hour week. Although I include my drive time because I am thinking about the business. I'm listening to podcasts there and back. I include my lunch time because I'm basically doing the same thing on there too. So I'm really saying I want to be away from home, working 40 hours a week, and also taking off the 7 weeks total of vacation. So the total of 35 days, 35 weekdays away. And I track that. So the funny story is, and this is like 8 years. I've been tracking this for 8 or 9 years now, where we are at a conference and we were hanging out. My wife got to come with. We were hanging out with all the other financial advisors, which, at the time was mostly guys. And then their wives were there. And the wives were all saying that it's really nice we're at this conference. And it was kind of like a rewards trip. And nice to get the trip. But man, my husband's working, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week. It's kind of nuts. And my wife's saying, well, Jeremy doesn't do that. Like I don't know. He maybe works like 45 hours a week. And then we're flying home and I'm telling her about the next week that's coming up. And I'm working one night that week and it's really not too big of a week. And then we get off the plane and we got to call her parents to, go get the kids and that kind of stuff. And she says, I don't know what I'm going to do because we're coming back and he's slammed. He's working every night this week. And I was so upset. I'm like, you just bragged to all these other ladies that your husband rightfully is only working like 45 hours a week. We just had a conversation an hour ago that I'm only doing one night this week. And it's a lighter week this week. And she said, well, it feels like you're working every night this week. And so I said, forget the feelings, because that's me with the math background. And so I started tracking right there out of spite. It was completely out of spite for months upon end. Every week I would show her, this is exactly how many hours I worked. And every time she mentioned to her friends, I was working like 50 hours that week, I'd say, no, it was 42.78 or whatever the number was. Thankfully, I got over the spite because that's not a good way to hang out with your wife. But then I realized right then, like I should be tracking this because I do want to have a certain number of hours, a certain number of nights, a certain number of days that I'm working. And the only way to improve it is to measure it. So that's what I've been doing for 8 years. Thankfully, only about 8 weeks of it out of spite. The rest of the time as a good, positive, motivating way to balance things out.
Love this. Love this so much. Just because, when we're going to make any sort of change, if we're going to do something, whether it's because you want to prove a point out of spite, guilt, like there's different kind of motivators, right? And the motivator for you started off as, I'm going to prove it, is more defensive, but eventually over time, like this has really helped to prove your point that I'm not a workaholic. Like I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to be successful and I'm going to be there for my family. One of the first things I have my clients do before I teach them anything is just track your time. Where are you? Because what happens when you start to track your time? And Jeremy, you can answer this too, but I think what happens is people start looking, should I do that? Should I actually spend the time on this? Because I have to track it. And then you have to face that reality. But when we don't track it, we don't have to face it. We don't see it. Those numbers, that 55, 65 hour week doesn't look at us in the face as we're quote unquote helping our clients live their most rewarding lives and we're not ours. We can let it go, or we can at least let it sit in our subconscious mind and let it build up. But what I love about what you're saying here is like, hey, I started out of spite, but it's something now I've done for 8 years. That's phenomenal. For you, when you first started tracking, did you find yourself making course corrections just because you were tracking it?
A bit. And really your calendar is going to fill up when it's available. So that's probably the best thing I've done is just you block off. If you want to work 2 nights a week, block off 3 of the nights. Like people can't book on their calendar if it's not available. And if you only want to block off, like right now, I only have 1 night a week available. There's 1 night a week available. It only gets booked up like half the time. But if it gets booked up, I know exactly which night it's going to be. And I've intentionally put it on there. So I guess that's step 1 is just to block off the times you're not working, because guess what you're going to do? Fill up the rest of it somehow, whether you do it or someone else. And then for me with those days off, one thing I do once a year is just look at the kids' calendar for school and just block off every day that they're not in school. But then I also look quarterly and realize sometimes, hey, I have this goal to take 35 days off. I am not on track. And so I'll just, go out the month or 2 or 3 and block off those specific days. I remember, now this was very fortunate. I'm in Wisconsin, I'm in Milwaukee, and I had blocked off like September 30th. Like it's probably normally going to be 50 degrees, but randomly it was going to be 80 degrees that day. Randomly last year, the kids were off of school. I didn't have to cancel things. And if you cancel something the day before and tomorrow's a nice day, people know what's up. I already had it blocked off. And so we went to the beach. We're the only people at the beach on September 30th, 80 degrees. It was great.
Love it. Yeah. It's that freedom, right? When you say no to things, you're actually saying yes to more opportunities. Mm-hmm. And I think there's so many advisors, I call them do-it-alls, where they're trying to do everything all at the same time, and they never can figure out why they don't feel balanced because they don't really get anything done. But they're kind of going a mile a minute every direction. But when you can time block, when you can block off times, you're not working, you're out of the office for those 35 days, no nights, no weekends, like however you end up doing it, like there is freedom there. Now you have choice. Now you can decide how to be productive in that amount of time. I am a firm believer that especially advisors who are working 70, 80, 90-hour weeks, that if they would just block out some of this time, a lot of the 10, 20, even 30 hours a week would go away from just wasting it. Well, a lot of times we're wasting it. We're trying to do so many things because we feel so busy. I write about it all in Achieving Balance book. You can get it at achievingbalancebook.com. But, then we really got to wrap our minds around how we start making these changes. For you, as you were trying to, really prove to your wife that this is real, like, hey, I'm not this workaholic, advisor. Obviously we come through some struggles, right? There's some things that are probably hard to do for you. Jeremy, when it came to you specifically, like keeping this balance, what are some of the biggest issues that you've had to address in trying to keep the balance?
I don't know if it's been, maybe I've been fortunate. I feel like I haven't had too much of an issue along those lines, although there are times when you get pushed over in one direction. Like if we're advisors and there's deadlines of things that have to be done by December 31, you might work more often in December. And it's just knowing that, planning it out, and maybe actually try to get a lot of stuff done in November. Right. For that. And so I just plan things out. So I go through things. Sometimes you say things accidentally and you realize it's smart. So I was talking to someone a day or a week or two ago, and I said, well, when you're meeting with your clients, you need to have a reason and do it in a season. I'm like, oh my goodness, that rhymed. So have scheduled meetings with your clients for particular reasons and batch them together in a particular season. And so we set up our seasons of here's when we're going to be reviewing the tax returns. Here's what we're going to be doing with the estate planning and all kinds of different things. But for me, like coming up here, we're going to be reviewing our tax returns for our clients from last year, and also be looking at their home and auto insurance, just make sure they got the right level of coverages. Well, I've got it blocked off. Like this project, this season is done on June 9th because the next day is the last day of school for my kids. So I've planned it all out months, weeks ahead of time. So that's when that season's going to be done. And then another season is going to kick off sometime in September, like the day after my kids go to school, because I don't have to worry about them for 8 hours a day. That's a perfect time to get some work done. Right. And so it's just going ahead and planning out the seasons of when you're doing things, and make sure that you've got the reasons for how you're meeting your clients. And it's doing the same thing with those clients, do the same type of meeting with 50 clients compared to 50 different types of meetings with all 50 of your clients.
Yeah, I love it. I always talk about times and seasons as in time management way. Like there's a specific time for doing, a particular thing in life. And there might be a season in your life where you're really focused, like for 2 years, I had a season where I was writing the book and marketing it. And now it's out. So now my season is speaking about it and really utilizing it to help advisors for same reason like a CPA, like it's tax season, right? Here's from February to April, this is the schedule, just tax planning, and maybe advisors out there who are doing that as well. So I was referring back to, a lot of times because we don't say no, we can't really set up these seasons as you kind of got into and mentioning, but I think it's Parkinson's law. I was remembering Parkinson's law is that we kind of allow ourselves to get into this rut of, I'm going to allot for this amount of time to do something. And it oftentimes takes that amount of time because we give it that authority. But for you, if you're saying, yeah, I'm going to have this season to work with my clients on this, and then I'm going to have a season to maybe relax and go do this, like that can absolutely help with the Parkinson's law kind of mentality of, it's just going to take the amount of time allotted. So when it comes to scaling your business, Jeremy, and I know, you're very successful, you're one of the top, podcasts in this space with retirement, with, your blog as well, and everything you got going on with your business. What would you say are some pitfalls as you're trying to scale this, as you're going forward and scaling, trying not to lose the balance that you have?
Yeah. So the biggest help is just understanding what your unique ability is and focusing on that. Because when I do my unique ability, I'm enjoying it. Like even if I did work 50 hours, it wouldn't feel like that because I'm enjoying it. That's probably why I need to time track it so that I don't do that, because I would work the extra hours because I enjoy it so much. But if there's other things I was doing and it took me 1 hour, it'd feel like 10. And so the danger is that you do figure out your unique ability and you feel like everything else is junk and you feel horrible giving it to somebody else, because why would you give someone else your junk? Like you've got to get over that, because someone else might say, hey, these tasks, these things that you're asking me to do, that's absolutely what I love to do. It's great stuff. And I would say the best help there, especially when you're hiring and scaling, for me at least, is the Kolbe index. I just latch on. I just understand that one quicker and better for some reason, just how the Kolbe explains the 4 different ways that you approach work or solve problems, things like that. And actually, real quick, I thought I was using it correctly because I was using it for hiring. And I'm trying to find someone that's kind of an opposite of me right now, trying to find someone that's maybe more operations minded. And there's a portion there called the implementer. And I'm a 1 on the implementer. And so I'm like, oh, I need somebody that's really high there. And of course, I'm not finding anyone. I'm getting upset. Well, thankfully, somehow Kolbe's business people got a hold of me. Like they're trying to sell me some of their process. And thank goodness they did, because the 30 minutes I spent with them, I learned that implementer has nothing to do with implementation like I'm doing a process. It has to do with implements. Like how do you approach things and use tools in your hands? Well, I knew that. I'm a number 1 out of 10. I hate doing anything like manual labor or that kind of stuff. And for some reason, I thought implementer had to do with like implementing a process. And of course, I wasn't finding anyone that likes to work with their hands. They're out doing mechanic jobs, not applying to be a financial advisor or work with that kind of company. So thank goodness I finally offloaded a bit of knowledge or uploaded it from the Kolbe folks. And then 2, here's a mistake I've done as well too. I did the Kolbe, so good for them. I'm paying like $50 to have a job applicant do the Kolbe index. And I'm looking at them, I'm thinking, well, I need someone good at follow through, and this person's really low at follow through. But man, I like them, and I'm actually low at follow through, and I could do it. I'm kind of like offloading some jobs that I don't want to do. Then I hire them, and they're absolutely horrible at follow through. They won't follow through on anything. Things are slipping through the crack, and I have to fire them. I did that twice in a row. Like I was halfway smart to do the Kolbe, totally not smart to still hire the person. So thankfully, when I talked to the Kolbe people, they told me the reason they're calling, hey, we've got this thing called the right fit index where you figure out kind of what's the Kolbe profile for the role. And then you do what I was doing, where you have the job applicant take their Kolbe, but then you can match it up to say, are they actually matched up? So you get to tell, are they actually the right fit? That's why they call it that, right fit for the job. So interesting enough, we're trying to find a financial advisor right now. We're growing, so we need another financial advisor. And so I have now the right fit index, and the Colbys that I'm having the applicants, the job pool take are matching up. Are they an A? Are they a B? Are they a C? Like, how do they match up? And so it's winnowing down, and it's giving us a better opportunity to make it successful for the person that we hire. And that's a great thing. And here's something I think you'll really find interesting is about a week ago, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought, I'm hiring for a financial advisor role. I have this right fit. Now that I've paid for that, I have my Colby. I could just match them up together for free. Like it's just clicking and dragging basically.
Love it.
And I did that. So I matched them. How well am I fitted? Like, how well do I fit for the role of a financial advisor? I was a C minus. My Colby profile says I'm a C minus when it comes to the role of a financial advisor, which just slightly blew my mind for a second. And then I'm thinking, how am I helping my clients? Yes, I get them excited about the process. And yes, I've come up with a retirement planning process and we've educated a lot of people, but am I truly the right fit to be their ongoing financial advisor? The answer is no. I would not hire myself to be that. Like if anyone comes in with a B or B plus, I'm not talking to them. You got to be an A or A minus. And I'm a C minus when it comes to the role of a financial advisor. So that's my new thing now, right, Travis? I'm trying to figure out how to fire myself from that role so Jeremy, that my clients can get a better opportunity to have a better advisor.
Yeah. And this is the whole entire point. The whole entire point is I think a lot of advisors and planners see themselves as like, I'm the best guy that can do this. The reality is probably not. You probably are a better business owner, or you should be, right? So that you can delegate, rainmake, get out of the way of doing maybe even the actual financial planning process. If you want to scale, again, if you're a solo advisor and that's where you want to stay forever, I understand. It's not what a lot of advisors want to do, but if you want to do that, that's your thing. Go for it. But the reality is, it's very difficult to have great balance and scale your business unless you can delegate, build a team, and honestly do what you're doing, Jeremy, and that is fire yourself from being the financial advisor.
Yeah.
Because then you can scale and you can grow and you can honestly hire better advisors, right?
Yeah.
Like you can hire the right fit. I love that. So delegation always comes up on the show, like 100% of the time. It is the word that if I go back through and search for it in every podcast, it shows up every single time. What do you think the biggest issue is for other advisors when they're trying to delegate and they just struggle with it? They can't scale if they don't delegate. So why do you think that they struggle with this delegation thing?
Yeah, the biggest problem for other advisors, I'll talk about other advisors and I'll talk about me. But the biggest problem for other advisors is just this feeling that they have to control everything, that they'll do better at it than someone else would. And yes, you've done it 100 times. You will do better at it than the other person will do the first time they do it. But just ask yourself, are you truly the best person to do it on an ongoing basis? And is that even your value? I was talking to a person that actually was a former business partner, and people would call in, ask for money out. He would fill out the form. He'd put it in the mail. And I said, what are you doing? Everything you've done this today, I watched him for like an hour. And I said, everything you've done the last hour, 2 or 3 people called in. Number one, you don't need a form. You could call it in. So you're wasting paper, you're wasting stamps, you're wasting the client's time because it's going to be like a week before this happens. It'll happen quicker for the client. They'll get a better experience if you just transfer them to the 800 number and make it happen right there. And he said to me, well, that's what they're paying me to do. They're paying me to get it done. And I said, they're not paying you. I'm sorry. He said, they're paying me to do it. So he said to me, well, they're paying me to do this. I said, no, they're paying you to get it done. They're not paying you to do it. And that's the thing. Yes, my job involves financial planning and retirement income distributions and tax planning. They're paying me to get it done. They're not paying me to actually do it. And remember that. And then also just think through that there's so many different tasks that need to be done. Are you truly the best person to do that? When it comes to client service, I am not the best person to do it. I don't have the profile to do it. There's things that need to be done with follow through and following systems and creating systems. I don't have that capability. And there's plenty of people to do. My clients are better off having me delegate that to somebody else. So I'd say that's the problem for other advisors, where they just have this control mindsets, and they rightly think that they will do it better than anyone else because they've done it 100 times. The other person hasn't yet. But when that other person gets to time 100, they will be better than you. And so just give them the power to do that. I'll tell you my problem real quick is that I heard somebody said, delegate, don't abdicate. That's my problem. I abdicate. I'm like, hey, get this done. And then I just don't do the training on how to get it done. I don't do the follow up on getting it done. So then like 2 weeks later, I remember, wait a second, did this get done? And it didn't. So that's where I'm trying to grow right now, is delegation is giving people the ability and the authority. I think a lot of advisors have problems giving someone else the authority to get it done. I've got my own things I got to work on to make sure I'm giving the people the ability to get it done by showing them the right way, and then also following up in a timely manner, not a untimely manner, but follow up immediately to make sure that they've got it done, because they might have run into a problem, and hey, you're here to help them get through that problem.
Yeah, brilliantly said. Yeah, I think this is a constant struggle. And I think you're right. It's all about the control. There's a direct correlation between those who are, I found to be do-it-alls and unable to delegate and control everything. Mm-hmm. It stems from the same issue. And I think the issue is fear. They're afraid of something. They're afraid that they might lose something, a client, respect, money, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Or they're afraid of what would happen if they do delegate and they become successful. Well, what am I going to do now? Right. I guess I'm not going to be needed anymore. Like, it tends to be a fear of the failure or success. I write about it, the last chapter of the book, what I call the fear tree. And I think sometimes we water these fears and they become bushes and then become trees and they bear fruit, and we believe it because we water it. Like, we subconsciously do this. It's not something we consciously, set out, I'm going to be afraid today. But I think it's that fear that leads us to control, not delegate. And it doesn't allow us to really spend the time to even, teach, the whole delegate, don't advocate. That's fantastic. Put it another way, I think another guest, Marie Swift, mentioned, it was kind of the whole tagline. I'm trying to think of it right now, Jeremy, but it's basically to train and then come back and really follow through to see if it's being done, and I totally botched it. You'll have to watch that episode to hear what she says on that.
I've heard someone say, inspect what you expect.
There you go. Inspect what you expect.
Yeah.
It wasn't that exact, but it's the same concept. Like,
yeah, train
and then follow up. So I recommend advisors have ongoing appointments with those you touch, every, was that daily, weekly, and then the amount of time you spend with them should be correlated with how much time is in between. So more time in between, more time spent together in those meetings. So if you're only talking to somebody once a month for a half an hour who's working on your portfolios, like if it's a paraplanner, you got to be talking to them probably daily, right? And those might be daily quicker touches about those plans, about what you're delegating off to them. But the reality is we tend to do this. Yeah, go do something and go figure it out versus let me show you how to do it. I'm going to teach you how to do it. I'm going to train you how to do it. And then I'm going to come and inspect this later to see that you're still doing it. And then I'm going to train you some more. There tends to be that as an issue. If you're easily to delegate, but you struggle with the follow through, highly recommend those one-on-one meetings, and take good notes, follow up with them, see how they're doing with it, see how you can continue to grow your team. It's always better to retain than try to attract somebody who's tired of working with you because they're frustrated. You delegate too much and you never teach them how to do it. So really great point. Excellent point on this. You've said some amazing things here today, Jeremy. I think it's been very helpful. What would you say, like one or two things that would be just fitting for advisors who either struggle to scale because they're afraid to lose their balance or they're really out of balance themselves? what would be some advice you would say kind of last to say, hey, this is what's helped me? We talked about tracking, delegation. What other things might you suggest to advisors out there listening?
Yeah, I'd say focus on the people you love to serve, focus on the things that you love to do, figure out your unique ability. For me, that unique ability is speaking with clients and prospects about financial decision-making. I should only be doing that. Everything else, someone else can and should be doing. And also, I just love the idea. Take a Kolbe index so that'll help you understand how you approach problems, how you see the world. And that just might give you some insight into why you're failing in certain areas. And it really should give you insight into things you should be focusing on. And take the next step. If you're hiring for a position, then do that right fit index. Hey, go for it and do the right fit index for your own position, whatever you're doing now. See if you're even a good fit for it. Apparently, when it comes to financial advising, I can find some better advisors out there. And for me, my number one goal is to help people make great retirement decisions, and finding a new advisor to take on these relationships is what's going to help those people out. And if my goal was to increase my after-tax yield of my, margins of my investments, my business, I wouldn't be going out trying to hire somebody. No, my goal is to meet as many people as I can to help them make great retirement decisions. And a way to achieve that is to spend the time, the effort, the money to bring on another advisor. And that's what we're doing.
Love it. Great words of wisdom. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for making time to be here, telling us about what's working for you, your struggles. I know everyone appreciates hearing the real life experience, knowing of the success you've had. I really appreciate you being here and sharing with us in this industry. Hopefully you've liked this. Share, comment, subscribe. If someone's out there who needs to know a little bit more about delegating and spending less time, they maybe should be tracking their time like Jeremy's been doing, please share this episode with them. If you haven't picked up the book, Achieving Balance, go to achievingbalancebook.com. Check that out. Jeremy, if advisors want to reach out to you and get some advice from you, where should they go?
Yeah. Check out our podcast. And the best website for that is retirement-revealed.com. So you'll be able to see our podcast, our blogs, and there's a contact us on there as well. So just go to retirement-revealed.com.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.